Hello, my name is CJ Depardine, and I am the host of UntappedGoldmines.com. And you can find all of my videos, all of my podcasts, and many additional resources on Untapped Goldmines through my LinkedIn profile, which is CIJAYE. If you are viewing this for the very first time or getting to know me for the very first time, I thank you for taking this time. If we've met, hello again. It's nice to see you. I'm recording today because I've been recognizing some very big shifts as of late due to COVID, and I'm sure many of us have. And I wanted to get on a call and talk about and even show you what one of those big shifts looks like in terms of historical models and what we know really well to be true, and why what we know to be true needs a review and needs an iteration today, because there's so much of what we've been trained to do when it comes to managing change, dealing with change, responding to change, helping other people through change, and coming out of change in a positive way. And we have so many wonderful models that have worked exceptionally well when change is planned. And we need to adapt to that change by gathering the right group of people to take part in the storyline around that change and to really champion that change and to bring that change forward so that we hit the message home the right way, and only because we're including the right people and we're saying the right things and we're saying it at the right time. Today, however, we've got to change in the moment. And that's true of us as individuals, as well as those of us who lead people and those of us who help leaders lead people and support organizations in getting through this stuff. We have to adapt in the moment, every moment of every day. So these traditional models that we once had are only as effective as, kicking off the idea of what it is that we want to accomplish, and then moving through the motions in an adaptive action kind of way. So one of the things that I was contemplating the other day is what this change actually looks like when we compare and contrast it to different change models. And so I don't know if you can see this really well. So we've got a typical change cycle. My spelling is incorrect there. And then we've got the change curve, the Kubler-Ross change curve. And at the bottom of that change curve, right here, right here, is the valley of despair. I know my nail polish sucks, but I'm winging it. I'm doing this raw and real and hopefully valuable for you. So at the bottom of the change curve is this valley of despair, where we recognize that we're in a change cycle. We start to experience all the feelings that come with this change, and we bottom out. Most of us who have come through this COVID situation, and have seen the spikes and we're starting to level out, we've already hit this point and we're starting to normalize a little bit. But what happened for many of us is that we kind of got to this place where we also started to go on this roller coaster ride. So if I can come this way because I'm left-handed, we go on this roller coaster ride where all these additional loops that we're seeing here, and again, this is really horrible. I need an extra camera. I'll work this out another time, but all these extra loops that you see to the right of the valley of despair are these below the surface emotions. They're bubbling like a volcano, and we're having these minor bursts of uncertainty and discomfort, and we can't even name the emotions that are associated with this. And so what I've started to recognize is that because we are all in this and we're all kind of looping around this, I'm normal, I'm not, I'm normal, I'm not, I think I'll be okay, I'm not sure if I'll be okay, we're kind of bobbing and weaving, we're storing all those weird emotions down at the bottom. And like any volcano, they will bubble up to the surface at some point. And for some of us, that happens spontaneously and we have no control over it. I know I've certainly had moments where I've come to tears. I've had to go draw a bubble bath, turn off the lights, get the candles on, put on some music, and just like let it go. And some of us drink. I know my alcohol consumption has gone up and I'm not even a drinker. Um, some of us bury ourselves in our work. Some of us deeply immerse ourselves in our family time and build up that connection and those relationships that we're now missing, and, you know, thrive on that to get us through the moment. Some of us cook, some of us do creative arts and crafts. But I worry about those who don't really have all those things. They don't have family that they can spend time with. They aren't drinking, and nor should they, for whatever reason. They are in a unhealthy household. You know, they've got skin issues and they can't have those baths, or whatever the reasons are, like, and whatever our outlets are. Some of us are not able to actually work through and let go of whatever the bubbling emotions are, because what we're used to is no longer available to us. So we've got these ways of dealing with change and emotion that we've been trained with, whether that's through, you know, our own natural learnings in life and just sort of trial and error, or whether we've taken classes on emotions and stress and psychology, human behavior, or we've invested in ourselves and our self-leadership and our personal development enough to kind of have some coping mechanisms, or maybe we've been through therapy and counseling and we have those coping mechanisms, but a lot of them aren't working anymore. And so the reason why I want to bring this forward is because I want to make a difference, and I want you to be able to make a difference for you, and I want to start the dialogue about what that looks like and how we can take what we learn from this situation and ask ourselves honestly, you know, what isn't working anymore in situations like this? What is no longer relevant? And what new models do we need to move forward with? And I think, you know, I gave you that really awful visual example with spelling errors on it of a typical change cycle. And again, I didn't even draw out the change cycle. I'll put links to that wherever I host this video and audio link. So you should be able to see this on my Untapped Goldmines website under recent releases somewhere. And I'll call this the change emotions roller coaster as the title. But I'm seeing this new need to look at how significant some of the things could be that would change the way we respond to them. So this is one of those examples, like the change cycle, the change curve. loads and loads and loads of bubbling emotions, and we're kind of dipping and bobbing and weaving. And it's not to say that these models don't work anymore. It's just to say that we need to adapt things. And so we have to look at, I think, today and into the future, what has happened during this time that has asked us to question the models that we had in place and the models that we were very used to in such a way that prompted us to say it doesn't work the same anymore. And instead of acknowledging that it doesn't work anymore and doing nothing about it, what needs to change? So ask ourselves, what is different and what doesn't work the same way as it used to? And how does it need to change? And if we can do that in this moment where everything that we've ever known is basically turned upside down, and we are, and just for reference sake, if you watch this way, way, way later in life, it is currently April 18th, 2020, and the world is experiencing COVID-19, and it has been declared a pandemic, and many of us are in lockdown trying to physically distance ourselves from others so that we don't spread COVID. And we are experiencing a lot of things that, you know, just don't work the same way, and we have had to pivot and we've had to adapt. And there's so many companies that have done an exceptional job at pivoting and adapting, but then there's many others that just weren't equipped for this type of situation to happen to them, and it immobilized them. And as tragic as that is, those of us who are really, really comfortable with change and eager to help people through change can provide a lot of great ideation and opportunity for those businesses to pivot and adapt. And so I'd like to post this as an opportunity to start the dialogue, to ask the question, what has changed for you? What isn't working as well as it used to? What mental models just don't apply to this current situation? And what needs to change so that you can have an audience of people, hopefully, when you watch this or read this and there's comments below, you can have a community of people that are willing to engage in that conversation with you and give you new ideas. Because I think we're in a place and a time where we need others to help us through this stuff. And I, you know, it's quite ironic that I say that out loud, because I've always been used to being a leader in my fields, and I've always been used to running with scissors and just taking direction in terms of what a client wants or a leader wants, and just designing something and running with it. And I've usually been very, very successful with that. And it's not to say that I won't be, but it is to say that right now, I'm recognizing that there's a lot of stuff that I cannot do on my own or should not do on my own, because it's just not good for my own mental preservation, and or because we need to feel out the environment and the people that will be impacting with the things that we do. One of the other kind of reasons why I think this is so important today, and especially for those of us who are used to running with scissors and not necessarily bringing a lot of other people in to the mix, and not necessarily out of any malicious reason, it's just because we're, you know, doers and high achievers, and we just run and go, and maybe some of us are more impatient than others. I know that I am. So when I know that there's something that we can do and I've got lots of great resources to do it, I'll just run with it. And I feel confident when I'm running with things that I can successfully deliver something that's of use and of value and has an ability to have an ongoing ripple effect. The moment I bring others in, I tend to be a little bit more delayed with things, and sometimes it ends up going in a completely different direction than I would have taken it, and I'm not always happy with that. I'll be brutally honest, and that's a hard place to be. But today, how we behave, how we function will dictate how we are embraced by those that transact with us going forward. So even for myself to be a, high performing developer of things, I do recognize I need other people. And I do recognize that they can add a lot of value, even if it's just preliminary discussion to say, what's on your mind? What do you need? What would great look like? What would horrible look like? What are your ideal outcomes? And let's design something that works with that. Or, if you are okay with me running with it, let's design something that works like that. It's a start. And if you are a business leader or a business owner who's used to running on your own and making a lot of decisions on your own, now's the time more than ever to include people that would be impacted by any decisions you make today and any decisions you make into the future. Because the reality is, many people today feel lost, feel uncertain. They're riding that emotional roller coaster around the change curve, and in and out of feeling normal. And they may even be acting like they're normal and that they've regulated and that everything is okay. But below the surface, there's a lot of emotions that they are not dealing with. And if you look at any psychology reports today online, you'll see that there's a lot being told by psychologists about what's really going on underneath the surface of that calm, cool, collect person that looks like they've got it all together. The reality is we don't. We are all experiencing the devastation, the loss, the grief, the sadness, the uncertainty together. And even if we are not directly impacted, if we're still working, if our families are with us, if our families are healthy, we haven't lost any loved ones. Yes, we may be less impacted, but for those of us who actually have, a high empathy center, we're feeling it for others. We're feeling it for their families. We have that sense of loss for them and that grief and that sadness for them. And it is tough, but we have to realize that everybody else that we're connected to is also going through the same. So as leaders, knowing that we are in a massive change situation, we must recognize that so are our most cherished people. And I believe strongly, and I've been talking with experts about this over the last few weeks, whether it be one-on-one in conversations and in podcasts and on some of these networks that I'm a part of, these Slack channels, Slack communities, change communities, and so on. We need more than ever to stop and make connection and to really find out where everybody that we care about is at in their change curve, and whether or not they are dealing with emotions that they have not actually truly processed. If you haven't built the rapport with your people yet, that would give you the type of conversation required to dig that deep. There's no time better than now to just start the conversation. So I'm going to give you 4 very, very simple ways to start the conversation today. And these are derived from Appreciative Inquiry. I've converted them and made them my own as a result of my coaching experience. And I've had great successes in asking these 4 questions. And I've done this and run this with many teams. And if you are one of those teams that has experienced this through me, or with me, and has repeatedly actually used this with me, I would love for you to leave comments below and share just your experiences of having gone through this, so that anybody who reads this or watches this video and reads the comments below can also see And again, if this is on podcast only, I would encourage you to look at my website, untappedgoldmines.com, and look for the podcast in particular for today. And it's, the change emotions roller coaster. I think that's what I said I was going to call it. So please look that up on my site, on my recent releases, so that you can engage in the conversation there. But please do leave comments around these 4 questions. And if you've experienced them through me, either as one of my coaching clients or as one of the teams or leaders that I've supported through this. So the first question is, outside of having the regular conversation, how are you? What's on your mind today? What's going on in your world? That early introduction aside, then we jump into the more actionable and more leading. Yes, I'm going to say leading questions. And I know many of the traditional coaching models out there are very against leading questions. But I have had incredible success. And they are not leading in the sense that I am dictating where the person goes, but they're leading through a series of questions to get to an end result, which is very actionable. So the first question is, what is going well for you, or what is working well for you? What is making you happy these days? What brings you joy these days? Where are you finding delight these days? Any one of those variants of that question is a good question to ask anybody. Inserting the what else question after anybody provides a response to the what is going well, or what is giving you delight, what is bringing you joy, etc. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? And the reason why, and I may have already said this on other podcasts or other recordings, but the reason why this to me is so important, and the reason why the what else question is so incredibly valuable, and that comes from the book, The Coaching Habit, by the way. The reason why I've found that question so valuable is because people really do like to talk. We all do. And people like to be heard. And we have a lot going on in our minds that we rarely take the time to get out. And so the what else question gives you more opportunity to get out all the stuff that's on your mind. And it may even be stuff that you're not thinking about. So just by inserting that question after the first primary question, it just gives you more layers to the what is working well question, or what is going well for you question. The second primary question is, what could be even better for you? And the reason why I love this one so much, and this is my adaptation. Appreciative Inquiry has very different sort of prompts that they encourage people to go through, but the concept is still the same. The construct and the context is still the same. The what could be even better question I got from Ericsson International through my coaching competencies for leaders training. And that question, what could be even better, is a very solutions focused question. Yes, it will prompt the individual to ask the question to themselves, what's wrong? But they are not going to be answering the question by dumping a whole bunch of what's wrong into the conversation. Instead, because the question is solution focused and positively focused and asks what could be even better, it's going to encourage that person to do a little bit of a mental check on what are all the problems, but what could be better with those problems. So they're immediately problem aware and solution focused. It's a fantastic way to address the problems or bring them up to the surface, but move them past it. And so if we think about that, bobbing and weaving that I shared with you on the revised change curve visual that I came up with, this is a great way to talk about all that stuff that's under the surface. So what could be even better for you? So if I think about, well, I can't cut the tether between, my work life and my home life right now. That may be a problem, but because I'm asked the question in a what could be even better perspective, I might say, I'd like to find a way to cut the tether, right? I'd like to do this. And you can see immediately that it is an actionable response. And it is a response that actually looks at what could be as opposed to what are all the problems. And we know that when we focus on the problems as human beings, that the negative is just compounding and has much more of a significant impact on us from a mental well-being as well as a physical well-being perspective, that we really don't want to live there for too long. But we do want to be solution oriented. So that what could be even better question in conjunction with additional what else questions. So what could be even better, and what else, and what else, and what else. Great way to get people to focus on some key opportunities that they have that they want to think about that will make things better for them. And there's no bad ideas. With Appreciative Inquiry, one of the best lessons I think that they teach is that this is a brainstorming process. This is not about solutioning specifically. It's about thinking about all the infinite possibilities that could be, and making sure that there's no bad ideas. And so when you do this with a team and you set the pace and the expectations that this is really about just creative flow of whatever comes to mind for you, it makes it a lot easier for you to just say whatever. And some of it's going to be not so useful. So if we get to a point where we can answer that what could be even better question with a number of responses, then we can ask the question, and it's sort of like a tertiary question. Of these things that you've listed, what is the most important to focus on today? And that may be one thing, it may be 5 things. There may be a number of things that are very interconnected. And so technically, you solve one of those issues, 5 issues go away. Or you solution one of those things and you've solutioned 5 of those things. So we have the opportunity to ask the people that we care about what is most important for them, or to spin that question more like a coach would and ask what would be most valuable for you to focus on. What would have the greatest impact on you? Out of all these things that you've listed so far, what would have the greatest impact on you so that you can actually make a difference in how you feel today and make that better for yourself? So it's, again, a tertiary question to the second primary question. So we've got 2 primary questions. What's working well? What could be even better? We throw some what else questions in between there, and then that tertiary question of all these things that we've spoken about, what is the most important to focus on, or where would you get the most value or impact if you spent your time there? The third primary question, and again, my language may not be superb here. I'm not an academic. I follow academics. I try to learn as much as I can. But I was really, really, really poor when I grew up. So I didn't get the privilege of going into college, and I was denied a student loan because I was working and I made more money than I was going to allow myself to be qualified for student loan for. So I kind of screwed myself out of the ability to go to university anyways. So if I'm not using the right language, I apologize. If it frustrates you, I apologize. But nonetheless, our third primary question is, what can you do about it? What are some of the ideas that you can put down or you can brainstorm that would help you make that change, make that impact? Focus on that one thing or those 5 things that are most valuable to you. And again, this is still just brainstorming. We're not actually making commitments yet. We're just throwing out ideas, and some of them are going to be good and some of them are going to be really, really bad. And that's totally okay. And if we can do this with other people, if we can ask other people for their inputs and say, I'm thinking about this and I want to focus on this, and what would you do in this situation? Get their ideas, because you don't necessarily have all the experience and all the knowledge, nor do I, to know of all the possible things that you could do to make something different or make something better. And that's where community plays a huge role. And the great part about that is, especially in this day and age where people are feeling really lost and very uncertain and they don't know what to do with their lives, some people are out of work and they're looking to find meaning in life, and some of them are servant leaders. They're here in this planet to serve others. And so if you put that question out there, there will be people that are just happy to be able to provide you with ideas, because that's just naturally who they are. And I have a few of those people that are always commenting, and I thank you so very much, because I know who you are. I appreciate you giving me feedback. I appreciate you giving me ideas, and I may or may not take them all in at all times, but I know that you're there and I know that you're listening and I know why you care. So I appreciate having that community that I can just throw things up there to and get thoughts from. So don't be afraid to do that at this point. And don't be afraid, if you're a leader, to encourage your people, your talent, to do the same. Tell them to ask their team. Tell them to ask their own networks of people. You don't have to have all the answers as their leader. And in fact, now is the perfect time as a leader to step up and say, I don't know everything. I'm going to be really vulnerable with you and say, I don't even know how to help people during this time because I'm emotional. But here's some of the things that are on my mind, and I hope that they're of value to you. And that's the only reason why this video is being created by me today, is because I'm here to serve people. I want people to find hope, and I want them to find a way forward, and I want them to find tools and resources that are going to work for them, and make those tools and resources that I share easy to digest and exciting to explore. I'm here to give you things to discover that may or may not work for you. So again, if you or your people, the people that you love, are asking that third primary question, and again, language doesn't matter here, it's just a third primary question. What can you do? What are all the possible ways that you can make that impact or make that change? And explore away. You may be very pleasantly surprised at all the potential ways in which you can move this thing forward. And some of them may be really, really simple, and some of them may be very complex. And if you come to a place where you've got a lot of potential options and you have no idea how to decide between them, then I would encourage you to use the Cynefin framework. And in fact, I don't even know if we can call it a framework, but I want to use the right words, and I want to honor Dave Snowden, because I know that there's been, words thrown out about it being a framework, a model, a method, etc. And I know in the academic world, each of those things are very different and they have very different implications. So I don't want to misquote and say it's a framework, but the Cynefin model, method, framework, whatever you want to call it, is a really good tool to work through the options that you have, the decisions that you might need to make, and how simple or clear they are to make, how complicated they might be to make, how complex they are, and how they might need some experimentation before you really get it right, or how chaotic it is. So I would insert that into this place somewhere at this point. And this is really valuable if you are doing this with an entire team. So this appreciative inquiry session with an entire team. So you've gone through what's working well, you've asked what could be even better. Now you're asking, what can we do what are the options to address some of these top priorities that we have, or this the most important thing that's going to move the needle, or what we need to focus on today. Because we are also at a place, I think, many of us, where we have to start minimizing what was on the roadmap and start focusing on the things that are going to add the most value, because it's one way to stay a little bit more sane. It's another way to minimize the amount of pressure and busyness that we are putting upon ourselves and even others that get involved with whatever it is that we're doing. So minimizing is good at this point. That's my belief. Now, I'm also a big proponent of like burying myself in my work and doing a ton more than is expected of me at any given time. And sometimes when I'm in a really emotional state, that is the best answer for me, that to just go and plow through and do a billion things. But even myself right now, I recognize that emotionally, there is subconscious debris floating around below the surface of all those emotions bubbling. So I am a little bit of a volcano, and I have to recognize that as much as my natural propensity is to like do more and bury myself in my work, now's not the time. So what is the most important thing to focus on, and what can we do about it? And then the last question, the last primary question is, what are the next steps? Who's going to take those steps? What are the actions that we can take that are realistic? And so this is kind of like the GROW model, if you know the GROW model, where we're, goal setting, what could be even better, how could we get there? And then we get into this reality check of like, what could be done? What are the actual logical next steps that might make a difference here? But I would say that if you've learned nothing from this wild, uncertain time, it is that we can set amazing goals and we can design the path towards those goals extremely effectively. And some of us are exceptional at that. Some of us, not so much. But change happens. And sometimes there's change that happens that we have zero control over. And therefore, the goals that we set just aren't going to be accomplishable. Maybe not today, and maybe not ever, because the landscape has changed. The environment has changed. The needs have changed. The business that we run has changed. I mean, think about all the businesses that are making a pivot now to manufacture masks and scrubs and latex gloves and all kinds of PPEs. Some of these businesses will probably continue to provide that service, and it was never something that they would have ever done before. Or they might sell off their methods and models to an organization that is willing to take that on. Or they may create a subdivision for it, or whatever. New goals, new direction, new business. The point that I'm trying to make is, even though you may get to that fourth primary step of saying, what are the next steps? These are goals that are more like directions. What directions are we going to head in? So we set them with the intention of moving in that direction. But I would caution everybody who's trying to set goals today to not think of them as rigid goals, because the moment they become rigid goals is the moment we lose sight of what is changing around us and how there's new opportunity that's even better, or there's weak signals that we're not paying attention to because we're so focused on the goal. So we want to get to a place where we're actually releasing energy and activity that's going to move us in a direction, but also with full awareness of the entire system that we're in and the potential changes that we're up against and what could be different along the way. We can't plan for that. So the only thing we can plan for are those goals and that direction, but we can always hold ourselves responsible for and accountable for the awareness and the adaptive capabilities, or resilience is the new buzzword of the year, I would say, given all that is happening. So we can equip ourselves with those tools to ensure that, one, we know that the goals that we set are fluid. Two, we're building up the strength to be able to respond better in moments and be a little bit more agile. So we need, functional agility, and we need people agility. We need organizational agility. We need a lot of agility right now. So if we can catch all that stuff and put it into the mix with the goals that we do set and say, the caveat is we need to be conscious of what's happening. So that means that when we set those goals and we look at those actions, we should be including more people along the way to say, okay, I'm in this place. This is what I've done. We should be saying it will move to the next level by this date, whether you give me input or not. If you give me input, I'll pivot if I need to. And if you don't give me input, it's going forward. Totally fine. But give people the chance and give people the opportunity so that we can be agility. We can enable that agility and be resilient and encourage the people that are around us and will be impacted by the things that we do to be more resilient and involved as well. And we want to be able to say and build up the capabilities to say, if something else changes along the way that just throws this goal out the window again, we'll deal. So what is plan B? What is the second potential option? When you get to a point where you've got a whole bunch of stuff on a list of what could be even better and how many ways could you get there, and what are the next action steps, you should have more than one of these things. You should have more than one answer. Run a SWOT analysis against them. Do it regularly, check in regularly, be iterative and incremental with what you're doing, and just stay aware. I recognize that some of us are a little too fixed and need order and need a linear, drawn out path to a conclusion, and nothing makes us more uncomfortable than constant change. But if this current state of the world is teaching you nothing, it should be teaching you that change is constant, period. It's never not going to be constant. There's change happening all the time. Change happens when we add new people to our teams. Change happens when we add new systems and processes to the way that we work. Change happens when one of those people learns something new and tries to embed it into their daily activities and their daily norms. When one of those people has a life-altering experience and it changes who they are and how they interact with us, change is going to happen all the time. So the goals that you set are just not as confirmed as they once were. They're just direction. And so your strategic one-page plans, your 25-page strategies, and your, execution structure, all of that is important, but it's not as important as being fully conscious and aware along the journey to get to that end, and being incredibly comfortable with knowing that the end may look different by the time you get to that end. And in fact, the end may never actually happen. And that there may never be an end. You may be constantly in motion and constantly moving towards a direction and iterating along the way. Because the second we become finite with what we've done and how we're doing it, is the second we start the clock towards complete complacency. So it's finite, it's done, it is what it is, and now we're going to be complacent. We have seen this all over the news with the federal system for employment insurance in the United States during this time. It has been reported that this system is 4 decades old, 3 to 4 decades old. Somebody somewhere along the lines, and many somebodies somewhere along the lines, decided to be complacent, decided to be okay with that system. Maybe it was way too much work to even think about changing it, let alone actually making the changes. And maybe that was just not the priority at any point in time. And maybe there were small little patches and small little technological changes that happened along the way. But at the end of the day, that was a stagnant system. It became a finite system that then created pure chaos for people in the time of their greatest need. So that particular system is one of many examples of where, if we get too comfortable with achieving an end result and then sitting on that end result and just letting that be the status quo and the norm for too long, we run the risk of actually creating catastrophic failure down the road because of that thing. So I'll leave it at that, because I've shared a ton with you, and I don't know how much, if any of this is going to be of value to you. It's just stuff that's been on my mind, and there's so much stuff on my mind. If you liked this and you found value in this and you want to hear more of just my ramblings and what's on my mind, and if you want to productize this stuff that I share, I would not be offended. Just share with me how you productize it so that we can share it with others and share it with the world and make it possible for others to benefit from that as well. I would truly appreciate it. So thank you again for listening. And commenting if you leave comments. And again, CJ Depperdine at untappedgoldmines.com. Thank you for just being you and going through this situation in the best way that you know how. I also offer myself as a brainstorming partner for you. If you just want some ideas on stuff, I'm happy to do that. I currently have no intentions of making this business profitable. It's just kind of a side passion of mine. Happy to receive donations or gifts for any of the time and energy that I put in, and any of the time and energy that my guests put in on my podcast. But I just want to know that this adds value. So please share. I do appreciate the one-on-one shares, but I appreciate the public shares more. If you've listened to this and you actually have really positive things to say, I would appreciate that you spread that and share that forward, so that the people that trust you and follow the things that you follow and believe in the same things that you believe in can experience some of this stuff as well, and can learn some of these things as well. And again, can maybe take from this even one little thing. I'm a huge advocate that as long as you take one thing away from any learning experience that has the ability to change how you show up and how you function in a very positive way, then you've gained tremendous value from that. And I realize that this was a little bit longer than I intended it to be, as well as you may have had any interest in. But if you took one thing away, I'm happy with that. And I would love to hear the ripple effect of that, not just right after you listen to this, but also as you move on and move through your days and get to a point where you can correlate this new behavior back to this. I would be so fulfilled to hear that that happened for you. My cup is always full. My heart is always full when I know that something, even one little thing that I've said or done, has made a positive difference in somebody's life. So that's it. My rant and ramble and heartfelt love and care for you through this time comes to an end. Thanks again for listening. I really appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.